Have you ever imagined living in a place where the horizon is made only of sand, the heat seems endless, and hope is measured in drops of water? A place where time moved slowly, marked only by Bedouin caravans and the distant sound of the wind between the dunes. This was the landscape of the Arabian desert before the discovery that would change everything. No map indicated the existence of a treasure there. No explorer dared imagine that beneath that seemingly infertile soil lurked a fortune, capable of transforming the destiny of a people and inspiring the entire world. The story you're about to hear isn't about luck, it's about vision, courage, and faith. Because before Dubai existed, before the sky-high buildings and the artificial islands challenging the sea, there was only silence. A deep, almost sacred silence that hid the most precious sound in modern history, the sound of oil gushing for the first time. In that instant, the desert ceased to be merely a symbol of scarcity and became the cradle of abundance. It was the beginning of a new era. Men born between the sand and the sun, accustomed to the harshness of nomadic life, now found themselves facing a power the whole world coveted. Black gold brought not only wealth, but also difficult decisions. What to do with such fortune? Save it, spend it, or transform it into something that would stand the test of time? It was at this moment that leaders like Sheikh Zayed and Sheikh Rashid showed the world that true wealth lies not only in what the earth offers, but in what the mind can build from it. Oil ignited the engine of transformation, but what truly drove the UAE was its mindset. While other nations squandered their resources on fleeting luxury, the UAE invested in the future. Schools, hospitals, ports and roads sprang up amid the dunes. The desert began to be covered in concrete, steel and dreams. It was as if the sand, tired of being forgotten, had decided to bloom. Dubai stood out in this process. While oil was still gushing in Abu Dhabi, Dubai looked beyond, to commerce, tourism and technology. Sheikh Rashid understood early on that oil was finite, but the vision was infinite. And it was with this mindset that the city reinvented itself, transforming every grain of sand into a symbol of progress. What began as survival became purpose. What was born from nothing became a reference. But behind all greatness comes a price. Rapid growth brought challenges, preserving culture, balancing tradition and modernity, keeping the Arab heart beating beneath the glass towers. And yet Dubai forged ahead, because when a city is born of faith and vision, it depends not only on what it has, but on what it believes it can build. Today, the once-forgotten desert is a mirror of human ambition. There, the impossible was just the first step. Sand became foundation, heat became energy, and the silence of the past now echoes in the streets, in the buildings, and in the dreams of millions. This is the story of the fortune that transformed the desert into paradise, a story of purpose, courage, and the strength of a people who believed that even the improbable can flourish. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover will show you that not all wealth is made of gold. Some are made of vision. The desert has always had a silent way of teaching. For those who live there, time doesn't flow, it drags. The days are long, the heat is relentless, and the wind seems to carry in its sand particles the memory of everything that has passed through there. It was in this landscape that the Bedouins wrote their stories, men and women shaped by endurance, accustomed to scarcity, solitude, and the strength of faith. Every drop of water was a blessing, every shade a shelter. Life in the desert was a daily exercise in patience and humility. No one dreamed of wealth, only of survival. The nomadic tribes crossed the dunes with camels and hope. Their eyes learned to read the wind and the sky, because there the desert was both enemy and master. It was necessary to respect it, understand its whims, and know how to wait for the right moment to move on. The economy was simple, based on fishing, the pearl trade, and exchanges that depended more on trust than currency. Life followed an almost sacred rhythm, guided by prayers and the stars. But what few knew was that beneath those silent sands lay something gigantic, a secret that, when awakened, would change everything. That dry soil, which many saw as useless, hid the fuel of a revolution. And perhaps this is the most fascinating point. The greatest transformations in history almost always arise from unlikely places. Like the desert, life often seems empty until something hidden surfaces. A discovery, a decision, a renewed faith. The desert shaped not only the geography, but also the mindset of a people. It taught the value of effort, patience, and discipline. It taught that nothing is built overnight and that all abundance begins with a seed of resistance. And it's curious to think that it was precisely this mindset forged in scarcity that prepared the Emirates to handle wealth when it finally arrived. Because when the oil gushed forth, it wasn't just black gold that emerged from the earth. It was the accumulated wisdom of generations who knew how to appreciate each achievement. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the desert, before wealth, wasn't just a landscape of deprivation. It was the training ground for a civilization that would learn to transform adversity into abundance. And it's impossible to understand Dubai's rise without first understanding what the desert taught us, about faith, about purpose, and about the invisible force that moves us when all seems lost. The desert has always been more than a setting. It was a mirror of the human soul. Under the scorching sun and endless dunes, life moved at a slow, almost meditative pace, as if time had its own rhythm. For the Bedouin, each dawn was a victory, and each starry night a reminder that faith was the only compass capable of guiding the void. The trade in pearls and spices was what kept survival flowing, but above all, it was the unity of the tribes and a sense of purpose that sustained these people. Wealth was not measured in gold, but in honor, hospitality, and courage. It was a simple world, yet deeply connected to the essence of existence. The wind that swept the dunes seemed to hide ancient secrets, and perhaps among them lay the greatest of all, a fortune that still slumbered beneath the sand. But before fate revealed this wealth, the desert fulfilled its role, shaping the mindset of a people prepared to prosper. The Bedouins learned to endure, to wait, to work with what they had, and to never waste the little that nature offered. This silent discipline would later become the invisible foundation upon which skyscrapers and economic empires would rise. The hidden truth is that the desert wasn't a punishment, but a training ground. It taught us to accept what we can't control, to be patient in the face of the unpredictable, and to value what's essential. These principles became part of the cultural DNA of the United Arab Emirates. When oil was finally discovered, they already had something within them that money couldn't buy, the right mindset to deal with abundance. And this is what differentiates a civilization that loses itself in wealth from one that grows with purpose. There's a quiet beauty in realizing how scarcity reveals the value of vision. Every grain of sand seemed a reminder that greatness begins in humility. Nothing was wasted, everything had meaning. Life was a cycle of patience and gratitude. This connection with the invisible, with the spiritual and the natural, was what kept the flame of progress alive, even when there was still no sign of prosperity. And it was this same faith that paved the way for what was to come. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because before the first oil well, before the glitz and fame, there existed a kind of wealth that the modern world has forgotten, the inner strength of a people who believed that anything is possible with purpose, faith, and discipline. And perhaps this is the true legacy of the desert, not the sand, but the mentality that arose from it. The sound of oil gushing for the first time was like the beating of a new heart beneath the sand. The desert, which for centuries had been a symbol of solitude and resistance, now pulsed with the promise of a new era. When the black jet pierced the arid surface, it wasn't just the earth that opened up, it also opened up the destiny of a people. No one knew for sure the scale of the discovery, but everyone felt the immediate impact. History had changed. Within months, simple villages began to gain traction, trucks crossed the dunes, and the first foreign investments arrived with promises of prosperity. What had once been survival became strategy. That sound echoing through the tents and the winds wasn't just the sound of oil, it was the sound of transformation. For the first time, the Bedouin looked to the horizon and saw not just sand, but the future. Black gold, as the world came to call it, became more than a natural resource. It was a symbol of power and possibility. But with abundance came decisions that required wisdom. The fate of the United Arab Emirates was about to be shaped, and what was done with. This fortune would define not only the economy, but the identity of a nation. The hidden truth behind the discovery of oil is that it was not only a blessing, it was also a test. Suddenly, a people who had learned to live with little had to face the responsibility of having much. The desert had taught patience, and now wealth required vision. It was at this point that the most profound challenge arose, transforming wealth into a future. Many countries around the world had already succumbed to the weight of abundance, spending without planning and losing their essence amid luxury. But Arab leaders, especially Sheikh Zayed and Sheikh Rashid, understood that oil was only the beginning of a journey, not the final destination. While others saw barrels and figures, they saw schools, hospitals, roads, and entire cities springing from the dunes. Oil became a means to a greater end, building an empire that united tradition and progress. This is how wealth began to take the form of concrete, steel, and vision. The transformation was not just on the surface of the earth, but in the mindset of the people. Work took on a new meaning, no longer for survival, but for creation. And this shift in mindset was the true engine of the Arab rise. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the sound of oil represented not only prosperity, but the beginning of a new consciousness. It was the transition from instinct to strategy, from improvisation to planning, from faith in survival to faith in construction. And it is precisely here that the true secret of wealth is born, understanding that wealth without purpose is merely an illusion. With oil, the rhythm of the desert changed. What had once been silence and stillness now vibrated with engines, machines, and voices, heralding the birth of a new era. The dunes, which for centuries had been shaped only by the wind, began to be shaped by human hands. The first roads tore through the sandy soil, connecting previously isolated villages. Ports began to spring up, connecting the Persian Gulf to the world. Oil money flowed like a newly discovered river, and Arab leaders quickly understood that it needed to be channeled wisely. Profit could not be an end in itself. It needed to have a purpose. Each barrel extracted wasn't just a source of income, it was an investment in the future. Schools began to be built where once there had been only tents. Hospitals replaced makeshift camps. Paved roads connected the void to the possible. The desert began to take shape as a city, and the horizon, once empty, became occupied by buildings, cranes, and dreams. This transformation wasn't an accident. It was the result of strategic decisions made by leaders who saw beyond the present. They knew that a nation's wealth lies not only in what it has, but in what it does with what it has. The hidden truth of this period in history is that the prosperity of Dubai and the United Arab Emirates was born not of haste, but of patience. Every advance was calculated, every step measured. There was a mentality of construction, not consumption. While many countries lost themselves in the race for luxury, the Emirates decided to race toward sustainability. And this is a powerful lesson, because wealth without planning is like sand between your fingers, easy to conquer, impossible to hold. The impact of these choices began to be felt quickly. Infrastructure grew, but along with it grew education, culture, and national pride. The people previously accustomed to scarcity learned to cope with abundance without losing their roots. Bedouin traditions remained alive, now blended with the modernity of the new cities. It was a balance between past and future, between faith and progress. Each road built was, in effect, a metaphor, the path that connected the ancient way of life to the new identity of a nation. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when a people decides to build from the inside out, it's not just the territory that changes, it's the mindset. Roads didn't just connect cities, they connected visions. Oil was the fuel, but the real engine was the people. And that's what transformed the desert into a place of infinite possibilities. Sheikh Zayed didn't see oil as an end, but as the beginning of a new responsibility. He knew that any fortune, if mismanaged, can turn into a curse. The real challenge was not extracting the black gold, but extracting wisdom from the power it would bring. Amidst a backdrop of tribal rivalries and political uncertainty, Zayed had a rare insight that the true wealth of a people lies in their unity. He believed that a nation's strength comes not from oil, but from cooperation, education, and faith in its collective purpose. His leadership was the turning point that forever changed the destiny of the Arabian Peninsula. While other leaders sought only power, Sheikh Zayed sought stability. He understood that prosperity is not built in haste, but with purpose. His mind worked like a social architect. He designed the future while still walking on the dunes. And so, in 1971, his vision began to take shape with the creation of the United Arab Emirates. The union of the small emirates, once isolated and fragile, became the foundation of a federation that combined tradition and modernity. It was not only a political pact, but a spiritual one, guided by a hidden truth that Zayed constantly repeated: "What is built with purpose stands the test of time." He believed that oil, despite being the economic foundation, should be merely a means to something greater, and that's exactly what he did. Profits from exports began to finance not only construction projects and roads, but also schools, universities, and cultural centers. He wanted to prepare his nation for a time when oil would no longer be essential, a time when knowledge and innovation would be the new fuel for prosperity. His mindset was long-term. Every decision carried the awareness that true power lies in the ability to plan for the future while building the present. This journey required courage and wisdom. Uniting diverse peoples under a single banner was no easy task. Sheikh Zayed faced distrust, resistance, and external interests, but his faith was unshakable. He believed that unity cannot be imposed, but rather inspired, and that's what he did: inspire. Under his leadership, the people began to see beyond borders, learning that dunes could be bridges and that sand could sustain dreams. This was perhaps the greatest transformation of the Arab mentality, realizing that power comes not from what one has, but from what one shares. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because Sheikh Zayed's vision not only built a country, but ignited a new way of thinking about leadership, purpose, and destiny. His story is proof that decisions guided by wisdom and faith can transform even the desert into an eternal inheritance. While Abu Dhabi consolidated its political strength and ensured the financial stability of the new country, Dubai looked to the horizon and saw something no one else did. Sheikh Rashid didn't just want to build a wealthy city. He wanted to create a symbol, a place that would show the world that true wealth lies not in extracting resources from the earth, but in extracting ideas from the mind. His mindset was bold and, for many, even reckless. While other leaders talked about preserving oil, he talked about overcoming it. Dubai would not be a city dependent on barrels. It would be a city driven by imagination. It was in this spirit that the first major projects were born. The Jebel Ali port, one of the largest in the world, was built at a time when almost no one believed it would succeed. The investment seemed crazy, but Sheikh Rashid knew that the future would be written by those who dared to dream beyond the present. He transformed geography into strategy and the desert into a stage for innovation. Trade flourished, international companies began to arrive, and in a short time Dubai went from being a distant name on the map to becoming the beating heart of the modern Middle East. But the secret to Dubai's rise lay not only in its monumental buildings, but in the mindset that guided every decision. It was a rare combination of courage, discipline, and vision. Sheikh Rashid and his successors understood something few nations have. Oil may run out, but knowledge never does. Therefore, every dollar invested in infrastructure was also invested in education, technology, and culture. The true black gold of the 21st century would be human intelligence, and it was precisely this mindset that transformed Dubai into a laboratory of the future, a place where the impossible became routine. The transformation was so rapid it seemed miraculous. Towers began to sprout from the ground, like plants growing in fertile soil. The Burj Al Arab emerged as a beacon of luxury, the symbol of a city that defied gravity and logic. And just when the world thought Dubai had reached its limit, along came the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building on the planet, erected in the middle of a desert. This wasn't just engineering, it was a statement. A reminder that dreams have no boundaries when guided by vision and purpose. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what Dubai built wasn't just a modern city, but a new way of thinking. It proved that scarcity can be fuel, that the desert can be a cradle of innovation, and that no limitation is definitive when the human mind decides to break the barriers of reality. This is the true essence of Dubai, the place where the impossible stopped being a word and became an action plan. All wealth comes with a price, and Dubai soon realized that growing too quickly requires more than resources. It requires awareness. Success brought admiration, but it also brought watchful eyes, criticism, and pressure. The world watched, and every decision made carried the weight of representing not just a city, but a new form of civilization. Progress, when it comes without limits, can be as dangerous as scarcity. And Dubai, born from the courage to dream, needed to learn the balance between advancement and preservation. It was time to prove that luxury didn't need to erase roots, and that modernity could coexist with tradition without destroying it. The desert winds no longer carried just sand, they carried expectations. The gleam of skyscrapers illuminated the world, but also obscured deeper questions. To what extent is it possible to grow without losing one's essence? What happens when economic power surpasses spiritual power? These were the silent reflections that accompanied the frenetic pace of construction and the emergence of new ideas. The hidden truth is that, behind Dubai's splendor, there was also the challenge of preserving what cannot be bought: identity, history, and purpose. With the rise of wealth came the temptations of excess. The city faced dilemmas few were prepared to face: how to keep the Bedouin soul alive amid concrete and luxury, how to ensure that development didn't come at the expense of environmental balance. The desert, once a symbol of simplicity, now needed to be protected from human expansion itself. This was the new battle, not against scarcity, but against waste, not against isolation, but against superficiality. And it was here that Dubai showed maturity. Local leaders understood that sustainable growth was not just a fad, but a necessity. Investments were made in clean energy, smart cities, preservation programs, and laws to protect cultural heritage. Faith remained the invisible axis that sustained everything, reminding them that true power lies not in dominating the world, but in dominating oneself. Dubai's journey became a living metaphor for responsibility. Power without purpose is empty, but power guided by values transforms into a legacy. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the price of wealth is not measured in money but in consciousness. Growth is easy when you have resources, but staying true to who you are while the world watches, that is the true test of greatness. And it is precisely in this search for balance between faith, purpose, and progress that Dubai has encountered its greatest challenge, proving that the future can be great without losing the heart that created it. Today, Dubai no longer lives in the shadow of oil. The fuel that drives this city is now invisible. Ideas, innovation, and purpose. What was once a desert has become a center of global experimentation, where the future is planned with the same boldness with which the past was challenged. Every project, every construction, every decision carries a clear message: the impossible does not exist when there is vision. Oil opened the doors, but it was the mindset of looking beyond the present that kept them open. The city learned the most valuable lesson wealth can teach. Prosperity is not about accumulation, it is about evolution. Today, skyscrapers are more than feats of engineering. They are symbols of mindset. Each tower rising on the horizon represents a story of reinvention, a reminder that the limits of reality are merely reflections of the limits of imagination. The desert, once a symbol of scarcity, is now a stage for creative abundance. And this is the great revelation behind Dubai. The true resource lies not in the soil, but in the mind. While the world debates crises and uncertainty, the United Arab Emirates invests in technology, education, and sustainability, demonstrating that lasting prosperity comes from the courage to think differently. The impact of this transformation goes far beyond the economy. Dubai has become a laboratory of human possibility, a space where tradition and future coexist without conflict. Mosques continue to call to prayer while drones fly overhead. Ancient markets still sell spices, while electric cars silence the streets. This coexistence between the ancient and the modern is what gives the city its soul. It hasn't abandoned its origins, it has simply elevated them. It's a journey of self-discovery on an urban scale, proof that it's possible to grow without losing what's essential. But there's something even deeper to this story. What began as a dream of grandeur has become a search for meaning. Dubai has understood that the future can't just be technological, it must be human. Therefore, each new project is born with the idea of impact. Environmental impact, social impact, and spiritual impact. Progress is no longer a race, it has become a commitment. The city that was born from nothing now seeks to leave a legacy, and this is perhaps the most important step in its journey. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what's happening in Dubai is more than development. It's a transformation of consciousness. The desert has flourished, but what has truly blossomed, there is a new way of thinking, a new way of seeing time, work, and destiny. And this is the message that transcends borders. When purpose is the center of everything, even sand can touch infinity. And after experiencing this journey, from the silence of the dunes to the glow of the towers, it's impossible not to wonder, what drives human beings to transform nothing into everything? Dubai is not just a city, it's a living metaphor that vision, faith, and purpose can change destinies. It teaches us that it doesn't matter where we come from, but where we choose to go. Because any desert can blossom when there's the courage to dream and the discipline to build. If this story inspired you, if it somehow made you reflect on the power of vision and transformation, leave your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know which part of this journey impacted you most, the faith of the Bedouins, Sheikh Zayed's leadership, or the audacity to build the impossible. Your opinion is what brings this channel to life and helps me continue telling stories that inspire, move, and spark new perspectives. Also, be sure to leave a like. That's what makes YouTube understand that this type of content needs to reach more people. And if you want to continue following stories that reveal the human side behind great civilizations, subscribe to the channel right now. Here, each video is a journey, not only through time and history, but through the soul of those who believe that the impossible is just the first step to the extraordinary. And before moving on to the next one, comment here, the impossible is just the beginning.